Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. We have a tremendous live stream planned this evening. There's a court out there that we've never heard of. We've never seen any cases filed inside, but now we have our very first ever all time since 1996 when it was created. It's been dormant, but President Trump just filed. And so we'll take a look and learn a lot more about the Alien Terrorist Court, which has a lot of the alien terrorists around our country all a little bit nervous. We'll learn how it works, what it handles, and more. We also have perhaps an alien terrorist who is somebody who may go through that court. We'll have to learn more about this person. But there was an attack at an ICE facility outside of New York, somebody launching a firebombing, launching fireworks and gasoline or something right outside. Lots of interesting video on that. We'll learn more about the person behind it. Before we get into a new surge from the DOJ, they are now moving to denaturalize and denaturalize. We have citizens, so-called, who come in here from foreign lands, get their paperwork, commit fraud in the naturalization process. And now the DOJ is not playing around anymore. A little used tool that we haven't seen a lot of ever in our entire life, all now going through the denaturalization process, having that citizen stripped away and being thrown back out. And then lastly, we've got a big report out on Cuba, because what we see is that apparently they were the ones who were infiltrating a lot of our institutions, as communists do, and maybe behind a lot of the DSA activity that we're seeing now take over the Democratic Party. And so a lot to get to. Very glad that you're here and with us. Thanks for subscribing and all the things, because we've got a busy week ahead, no doubt about it. And so as usual, let's just confirm that we're coming through loud and clear, and then we'll dive right in because we got some good stuff to get to today. So, and it looks like we're live. What a beautiful day. Hello, everybody. So let's get started today with the attack. Here is how it all went down. An attack from an anti-ICE lunatic hitting New York. You see that Homeland Security posted an update on this, but the video is wild. Really trying to figure out what this guy's ultimate plan was. Some people now hinting that this was a suicide attack or something meant to instigate ICE agents to come and shoot this guy. But they didn't. They captured him. We now know a lot more about him. But the background is from Homeland. It happened this morning, 8:20 a.m. An anti-ICE rioter launched fireworks outside 26 Federal Plaza, grazing a bystander, pouring what is believed to be gasoline on the stairs of the entrance of the building, and then lighting the whole thing on fire. We've got it queued up. An FPS protective security officer swiftly tackled this dude and detained the agitator, sustaining minor injuries during the incident. Officers then quickly recovered this guy's bag, which contained what appeared to be 2 pellet guns and a manifesto, which we're curious to see what that says. EMS, FBI, New York PD are on scene. This is a developing situation. And a couple of the videos that went down today, ABC News had this image and this video from a woman who was up in the building inside of a high rise. And you can see, if we zoom in on it, that this person is going to kind of come around the corner right here, enter into this little break in the planters on the stairs, dump in some of gasoline and some other items down there, and then light the whole thing on fire. Here's how it went down. And she's recording him, got some good timing on this. Here's this little leftist terrorist who's dropping that now and then lights it. Wild.
Oh my God.
So she flips out. He runs away.
Oh my God.
You'd think that he would try to get out of there, but he kind of just hangs out. You've got some other cops that are down here. They start to run over. They see it immediately and make their way to intervene.
Get away from there.
Yeah, and people don't know if there's other explosives or something in there.
Oh my God, get away from there. No.
They can't hear you. You're 15 stories up.
Get away from there.
All right, so then cops now kind of bypass around and they make their way up the street. One other officer already has this dude in a vice grip on the arm. They go down to the ground. Other cops jumping over the barricades. We got the K9 unit who now emerges, and that dude is taken out of commission. So why didn't he run away? No one knows. Maybe he was trying to instigate a death so that they could then turn around and say, look, they're killing us. But we're learning more about exactly who this is. We've got some aftermath of the incident from different angles, but this woman just happened to be up on high and turned her camera on. So not exactly sure what she was recording for. You know, she had very good timing, or it was a convenient coincidence. She's like, wow, it's a beautiful sunrise this morning or something. And then all of a sudden this guy turns the corner with a bucket full of gasoline and then dumps it on the steps there. So they round him up. And we now have the identity of this person. We've got the FBI, the DOJ were out repeatedly today. Cash came out. He said this morning, an individual deployed an incendiary device outside 26 Federal Plaza in New York. The individual is in custody and 2 minor injuries reported thus far. Now we are investigating the incident, and it's the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the JTTF, that is now looking into this. And you would imagine that if he wanted to cause even more damage, he wouldn't have just dumped it right there on the sidewalk. Like, that's not even on the building. Just go another 10 feet forward and then dump the gasoline into this little entryway or whatever this is, parking garage, or looks like it's probably just an entryway because you're not getting a car through there. So fortunately, it wasn't worse, but presumably it could have been if he had a little bit of, competence behind him. And it did ignite very quickly. Does gasoline go up that quickly, or is there something else like a lighter fluid in there? But he walked in and then kind of ran away, and they got the guy. So here's another angle on this. We got Fox News, of course, has this little individual now arrested, and they're not playing around with him. He doesn't look very comfortable here, as multiple cops have him now in custody. Fox saying that the man accused of deploying this is named Andrew Arabaka. 2 law enforcement sources have now confirmed. Also confirmed that he had anti-ice stuff on him. Wow. At the time of the attack. And so FBI New York is on the case, saying he had an unidentified liquid on him, so it may not have actually been gasoline, and that he put the liquid down, set some fireworks on top of it, causing a little fire. It was a pretty big fire. Arabaka was then taken into custody shortly after the attack. And here's what this dude, or non-binary or whatever, has now been arrested. So we've got another angle on this, and here is what Oilia Scootercaster got, and she always is getting these amazing clips. So somebody was on the ground level and saw this whole thing go down. Here's the aftermath of it. You can see the flames are already over here. Here's what it looked like from this angle.
Shit's crazy. Some guys had all fireworks?
More than fireworks, they were really ammunition. This is serious stuff.
Yeah, I heard it when I was online, and it sounded like a hell of a lot
He
more.
threw them out of cocktails.
Shit.
All right, so they got him down. You can see it's just kind of more of the arrest and taking him into custody. Then they pick him back up, bring him back around, and then that's or him or them or they or Z or Zer or whatever. Yeah, you're not going anywhere. So this fits the pattern of the other incidents like this that we've seen. These people are lunatics. They show up. They were launching fireworks outside at those DHS agents in Texas, shot one of them in the neck. And it's an onslaught. They're all getting brainwashed into this idea that there's a problem with federal enforcement of the law. And so this type of behavior is ongoing. Fox News with some more background on this, saying, yeah, there was anti-ice materials on the dude. Sources confirming that happened. Also announcing that he was taken into custody, saying 2 minor injuries from some others. James Barnacle, who is the assistant director in charge out there, explain more. We covered that. He was armed with a pellet gun, and that 2 people, a federal employee and a civilian, were both injured, both treated and released. Mamdani came out. Here was Mamdani's statement. He's like, I love communism. I love firebombing. I love the destruction of federal property. What occurred outside 26 Federal Plaza this morning was deeply disturbing. I'm relieved that no one was seriously injured and that a suspect is in custody. My team is in touch with NYPD, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to ensure that anybody is held accountable who threatens the safety of New York. All right, so we got the details here. Haven't seen any charging documents yet. I'm sure that will come. But in the meantime, we had a couple of updates today. So FBI came out. I've got 2 clips for you. This was the first one, and then there was a follow-up saying more from the officials in Valhalla, New York.
Around 9 o'clock this morning, a man with an incendiary device and some liquid, I don't know what the liquid was, put the liquid down, set some fireworks on top of it. It caused a little bit of a little fire. He was armed with a pellet gun. 2 people were injured, 1 federal employee and 1 civilian. Minor injuries. They are both treated and released. Around 9.
All right, that's the first little bit that we got. Then they came out for a more thorough presser. Here's what this one sounded like.
Today, just before 9 a.m., a man by the name of Andrew Arabaca, A-R-R-A-B-A-C-A, arrived at 26 Federal Plaza, just behind us on Worth Street, at the employee entrance to the building, where he ignited gasoline. He poured gasoline onto the ground and ignited it with a lighter and an incendiary device. That device was a firework, a large firework in a canister. That proceeded to catch on fire, pretty big flame as you've seen on the internet. He then pulled out an airsoft rifle and fired 5 to 7 pellets, if you will, in the direction of 26 Federal Plaza.
What?
At that time, Federal Protective Services, 2 officers, a gray suit, a contractor with Allied that is employed to guard this building. And those 3 people and the 2 officers standing behind me in the blue shirts are the officers that intervened and took Mr. Arabaca into custody. Well, he had him on the ground. An FBI agent jumped in and they put handcuffs on him and took him in the building. He is currently in custody and he has been interviewed. Arabaca is a former United States Army soldier.
Wow.
He was enlisted for approximately 4 years, serving from 2001 to 2005. He was a repairman or mechanic on Patriot missile systems. He is 43 years old. There were injuries in this. 3 people were injured, minor injuries, 1 civilian and 2 government employees. Right now, our evidence response team is out working with NYPD and our New York Joint Terrorism Task Force to collect evidence, to conduct interviews. We have located a vehicle of Mr. Arabaca's. We have seized that vehicle. We are procuring or obtaining a search warrant. Mr. Arabaca came armed with bad intentions. I will say that 26 Federal Plaza has long been a target of extremists, of terrorists, and today the extremism was brought here.
Another one.
The building was attacked. Mr. Arabaca was looking to injure people and harm people. He had 2 axes, a hammer, a machete, and 3 knives. Fixed blade knives. He had, as I said earlier, 6 incendiary devices or fireworks, and he had some other destructive items. Going forward today, like I said, we'll do more interviews, we'll collect more evidence, and we will, and I'll leave to Mr. McDonald to talk about charges.
So, very strange thing happening where you have seemingly these lone individuals who just emerge and then go on these sprees. We saw the same thing at the White House Correspondents Association, where that other lunatic was armed up with knives and other things, and then came barreling through the front door to go try to assassinate the president. We've also got the allegations that Tyler Robinson is a lone actor and that he didn't have anybody else with whom he was colluding or who were posting about this before the internet, before it all went down on the internet. And so we see this thing happening. It's weird, almost like these people are being activated or instigated by what they're learning in the mainstream media about the need that their democracy is ending and the world is now coming crashing down because of Trump. And so here's some more about the dude, guys. Andrew Arabaka, 43, former soldier, served back in 01, 05. A man described as an anti-government extremist set off an incendiary device, allegedly gasoline or some other chemical, pulled out an airsoft rifle and fired 7 to 5 pellets. Which is weird. If he's a soldier, why didn't he have actual firearms? And again, was he trying to get killed? Now, Barnacle said he's anti-American, anti-government, saying he did say he was targeting the building and he was okay if he hurt or killed someone, whether they're federal employees or even civilians. 2 government employees and 1 civilian suffered minor injuries. Now they're going to be okay. Former soldier, worked on Patriot missiles. Here's some more images of exactly what went down. He came armed with bad intentions, 2 axes, a hammer, and long been the target. Here's kind of a picture of the other materials that were inside. Looks like maybe the handle of an axe over here. Looks like a mallet, like a rubber mallet. We have what appears to have like the nuclear symbol on the top or the outside of this, like it's a can of fireworks. He came with something in maybe this, or is that other material from law enforcement? We don't know. So they were searching through items left behind. He had a cart with him. Okay, that was his cart. The guy brought an entire cart with anti-ICE literature. And when he was being arrested, he yelled derogatory terms toward ICE. Wow. On the suspect's cart was a sign reading, "ICE off our streets," just like the other lunatics who were insurgents and acting as insurrectionists out in places like Minneapolis and in Texas. That came out from Commissioner Jessica Tisch. We've heard of her before, not that Tisch, the other one. Noting that the incident took place on federal property. Here's some more photographs of it. And we'll ultimately see what the charges are when those drop. Have not seen anything hit the docket yet, but I'm sure they will be quite serious. You can't just go light buildings on fire or attempt to and fail badly. But here's more from Tom Homan. Of course, he is leading ICE efforts to continue the deportations at scale. And he was asked about this after it all happened this afternoon. Here's Tom Homan and what he had to say.
Training procedures changing. You talked about training the trainers. How are those training procedures changing? And
they're not changing. The trainers for the cameras. How do you operate the camera? What's the requirements? When do you turn it on? When do you turn it off? How quick do you need to store the data? How long is the data being stored? So there's a lot of work into this, and training the trainers. Once they get fully trained, they go to the field office with the equipment, and they implement and deploy it and tell people, here's how you use it and here's how you control it.
Are there
So what's the timeline then for every? What's the timeline then for every immigration agent to have a body camera?
As soon as possible, if that my way.
So you're satisfied with the training right now of ICE agents? Nothing needs to be improved. There's always
room for that's a loaded question. There's always room for improvement. Things change all the time. FBI updates their training. DEA updates their training. Every police department updates their training. Because ICE used to, look, you can never be overtrained. I wish there was more training.
I think American people want the answer of when every ICE agent will be wearing a body camera. I know you said as soon as possible, but is there a timeline floating around within?
That's a question for ICE. I know they got the deployment schedule, and I know they got the equipment. That's a question for ICE. I'm not in the weeds that deep.
Is there an administration required to turn on their cameras at all times during a traffic stop?
Yeah. Yes.
Or what's the consequence if they don't?
More about the quantity of ICE agents over the quality of the agents?
Say that again?
Is this administration more concerned about the number, the quantity of ICE administrations that it deploys over the quality?
I can't speak for everybody in the administration, but quality agents are very important. So it should be you won't give somebody a badge and gun, they need to be the best they can be.
So are there going to be reevaluations then of the hiring?
That's a question for ICE.
Is there any other procedure or protocol on the ground changing? Stops?
There's already, the director of ICE decided that, there needs to be at least one body camera on a scene. And again, I'm a big supporter of the body cameras. And as more body camera gets out there, they'll all happen.
That's the only change.
But let's be clear, you can attack the men and women at ICE all you want. It comes down to one simple fact. These people fail to comply with law enforcement.
True.
Even some of the major chiefs in this country who don't necessarily agree with this administration says you always comply with law enforcement. But the hateful rhetoric that ICE isn't a real law enforcement agency. I see these signs that will resist. ICE are the, let's abolish them. They're fascists. When you keep that hateful rhetoric up for a year and a half, there's going to be that percentage of that left population that it's going to be emboldened to take action because they're not real law enforcement agency. I should resist them. All they had to do is simply comply with law enforcement. If you don't like what law enforcement did to you, then go to the courts, sue, call the ACLU, do whatever you want to do. But you should always comply with law enforcement. If they did, they'd be alive today. Now, I'm not going to comment on the investigation itself and wait for it to play out. This is about complying with law enforcement, and a lot of the negative, hateful, and I said this a year ago, if a hateful rhetoric doesn't stop, there will be bloodshed. And unfortunately, I was right. And I'll tell you something else, it's not over yet. Unless they keep attacking and miscommunicating what ICE does every day, calling them Nazis, and comparing ICE to the Nazi regime. Are you kidding me?
Crazy.
And I'm not saying the whole country's convinced, but there's going to be that population that's just going to embolden to do something stupid.
Yep.
And I'm afraid that we're going to bury an ICE agent. I'm afraid I'm going to hand another folded flag to a spouse or a child of an ICE agent for simply doing his job. And for any member of Congress to keep attacking ICE and calling them fascists and Nazis, I said it 1,000 times. If they're a Nazi for enforcing the law, what's that make them? They wrote the law.
Ooh.
We're not making this up. We're enforcing laws they wrote, and that they appropriate us money to enforce. Now, I'll say it once again. If ICE agents act inappropriately or illegal, they'll be held accountable, just like they were held accountable in Minnesota. Everybody, guys, ICE agents are mom and dads too.
Yep.
They don't hang their heart on a hook every day to do this job. And it's just not attacking the ICE agents, attacking their spouses and children, and no one knows that better than me. I can't even go get a quart of milk at a grocery store without a security detail. Why? Because I'm enforcing laws in this country. It's pathetic and it's disgusting.
Let's go.
Thank you, Mr.
Tom Homan burning it all down in front of the press. Good for him. And he's exactly right. By the way, a lot of this inciting comes from the Democratic Party. It comes from guys like PB&J Pritzker up there and all of the other leftists who are in government who say repeatedly exactly what he just chronicled for us. And if the ICE agents are Nazis, what does that make all the Congress people who are now voting to continue to spend money and the money is flowing through the federal treasury? Are they all Nazis by proxy? Well, according to their standards, I think that they are. So Tom Homan is exactly right. And all I think he's pointing to is this law of big numbers. If we got 350 million Americans, let's say half of them are Democrats, one tiny percentage, like if you've got 150 million people, you've got 1% of those people are crazy. Then you've got another 1% of the 1% who will actually act on the craziness. We're still talking about hundreds of thousands of people. I think if you do the math right, it's a lot. It's a big number, maybe tens of thousands, but it's a big number of people who are crazy, but not just crazy and will act on the craziness. That's 1% times 1%. It's a small number, but when you're talking about a big population, it creates and agitates people to go do these things. And this is really by design, okay? This is what he's talking about. The Democratic Party wants these bad things to happen because they capitalize on it. The last time that we had Alex Preddy and Renee Good shot and killed for trying to run over federal agents, they instigated an entire shutdown of the government, and they stole months of law enforcement away from America, away from the duly elected administration who was put in place to go enforce the law. So it is a tactic. Fortunately, nobody got too seriously injured in this. We'll see what the charges are when they drop, but the firebombing will continue until these leftists stop agitating the other psycho leftists in order to cause their communist revolution, their dismantling of Border Patrol, their opening up of all borders, elimination of ICE, and so on and so forth. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thank you for joining as we do. Now, talking about terrorists, let's move our attention to this story because this is a very interesting one. A new court now enters the game, something that we've never seen here before because no one's filed any complaints or documents inside of it. Now, the Trump administration is not playing around anymore. They're saying, we're not going to let this court just sit there and stand by. We're going to go use it. It's called the Alien Terrorist Court. And when it was created in 1996, it was one of those entities that just kind of sat there and nothing happened inside of it because our Congress is useless and they like to just create certain things that waste money and time. But not anymore. The court has been dormant since it was created in 1996. And now we've got a new filing. We'll take a look at it. It's very short and quick, but we'll learn more about this court. And they're nervous about this because this has been congressionally allowed. Politico and the people who love illegal immigration say that now Trump has activated, yes, a secretive and never before used legal process to quickly deport foreign nationals deemed to be alien terrorists or their immediate family members. Just pick them all up and you can go. The DOJ submitted the first ever, like not in the Trump administration, ever, forever, which has lain dormant since it had been established by law in 1996. Little notice about this. Now it has hit. The details of the July 15th application are all sealed. We can't really see what's inside of it, which is fun. But the chief judge of the court is somebody called Joan Erickson. They held a sealed hearing last week on this and then issued another order for more clarification. And we'll read the documents here in a minute. Now, the activation of this court, according to the very nervous people at Politico, is another indication that Trump is now seeking to maximize its deportation authority in unprecedented ways. And it's unprecedented because nobody used it, but it's got precedent because it's literally passed by Congress. They made it. They created this court. It's got a website and everything we'll look at. Though the court has never been used, its existence became an obstacle for the administration last year when they sought to abruptly deport more than 100 Venezuelans and the Tren de Araguas and the MS-13 gangbangers until all the lower level judges said, you can't get rid of those people. We love Tren de Aragua here. We're going to put them up there in New York. So at the time, Judge Boasberg, he said, you know, why don't you go over there? Thank you, Jeb. We are. In fact, he said, Congress has an answer for us, right? Because Trump was trying to get rid of these people. Boasberg was the judge. Trump identified a bunch of terrorists, put them on an airplane, sent them down to El Salvador. Boasberg said, turn those airplanes around. You can't deport terrorists. Who do you think you are, the president? They reversed the plane, brought a bunch of people back. Then he held the administration in contempt and then was going to continue to wallop them over the head until the Supreme Court had to step in and say, Boasberg, you're not the president. Chill. So he said, why don't you go use this? Now they are. He said, well, we could use the court, but it doesn't mean that we can't use other authorities under the Alien Enemies Act in your courtroom there, Jebby. And now we're using the new court. Under the law that establishes this court, applications must be approved by the AG or the deputy AG. That's going to be Todd Blanche. The law includes a lengthy description. We'll take a look at some of the rules. And now legal scholars are very nervous about it. It's never been used before, so this is all uncharted territory. The court has 5 judges picked from across the country by John Roberts. Oh, great. The Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts picked these people, and it's very similar to FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which is also governed by John Roberts. The judges currently on the court include Erickson, which is the court's chief. We've got Timothy D. Giusti, a Bush appointee, Karen Immergut, a Trump appointee. We've got another one, Karras, a Bush appointee, and then Leoie, a Bush appointee. So this is a pretty red court is what it looks like, although many of the Bush W appointees were all, very pro-immigration. So we'll see. Now, the new application was first discovered by a guy called Seamus Hughes. Shout out to him, a journalist and researcher who runs Court Watch. And here is the court website. We've looked at a lot of court websites on the channel here. And this one, pretty simple. This is it. It's a one-pager. Almost feels like they just slapped it together over the weekend. But here's what you can see is the entirety of the docket right there. It's it right there. There's an application and there's an order. We'll take a look at both of those documents coming up, but you can see they gave us some background. In 1996, Congress created this puppy as a special court and authorizes John Roberts, the Chief Justice, to designate 5 district court judges to review applications to remove these alien terrorists, all governed under U.S. code. You can email the clerk or the media liaison if you have any questions. So we've got the 2 documents, very quick perusal of these things. As you'll see, it's all classified. So first application to remove somebody hit last week. We're now learning about it. courtesy of the DOJ, National Security Division. This is our application to the United States Alien Terrorist Removal Court. It just sounds good, man. Alien Terrorist Removal Court. Love it. So that's it right there. July 16th is when it dropped. All of it, of course, is going to be classified and under seal. So it was all submitted to the Classified Information Security Officer, and we can't see anything else inside. But they held a hearing pursuant to the rules, and then the judges came back down and issued this order. The Chief Judge, Joan Erickson, said the following. All right, on July 15th, the United States filed an application to remove a terrorist and get him out of here. On July 16th, we held a hearing as contemplated by the law at which the court heard attorney argument, but no sworn testimony was taken. During the hearing, the U.S. government offered to supplement the record with information, and the court had questions about the nexus that the government alleges between the actions of the respondent and specific sections or subsections that it invokes with respect to those actions. So you say this guy's a terrorist. Law says they have to do certain things. Where did that cross over? He did this. Here's, oh, there it is. What is it? The answers persuaded the court that the government could benefit from more opportunity and for more thoughtful consideration. So in other words, how hard are they going to make the government plead their case? What do they have to show? If it's MS-13, Trump designates MS-13 or Tren de Aragua as foreign invading gangbanger types of attackers who are terrorists. Is that good enough, or do they have to like blow up a building? Now they order the government to supplement its application consistent with the matters discussed during the hearing and give us any other factual or legal analysis to satisfy the statutory obligations. Absent a request for additional time, any additional information shall be submitted on or before July 22nd, and so it's moving quickly. So what do they have to show, and what is the process? Let's take a look at some definitions first to see what a terrorist actually means. The term alien terrorist means any alien described in this section of this title. And so alien, of course, in general, an alien whose presence in foreign policy, terroristic activities, any alien whose presence or activities the Secretary of State or the United States has reasonable ground to believe that it would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States is deportable. Talking about Nazis, commission of severe religious violations and freedom, and other items listed there. So, in addition, national security and more, very short definition section, not a lot going on there. And then we've got the removal procedure. So they filed the application. They say, in any case where the AG has classified information that an alien is an alien terrorist, they may seek removal of the alien. You got to have the identity of the attorney who's making the application, certification by the AG or the deputy AG, the identity of the alien for whom removal is sought, a statement of facts and circumstances that establish probable cause that he is an alien terrorist. Let's see if we can pull that definition. An alien terrorist means any alien. So it's a very loose definition. Yeah, very loose definition based on this definition. Potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences in America. So pretty dang broad. In other words, you don't have to blow up a building. So if you're physically present and if it's going to pose a risk to national security, you can go. File your application. It's all going to be submitted ex parte and in camera, so they're not going to have a bunch of ACLU gangbanging lawyers coming in here. Shall be filed under seal with the removal court. AG can dismiss these things. Then in determining the application and whether to grant it, the judges need to consider the following. What is the information? What is the testimony? Then issue an order. If you're correctly identified as an alien terrorist, you're gone. If a judge denies it, they have to explain why. And so there's not a lot of rules about how all this works down. And so lastly, then they have a removal hearing. In any case in which the application for an order is approved, a removal hearing shall be commenced. It needs to go expeditiously. The removal hearing, shall be open to the public. Wow, all right. An alien who is the subject of a removal hearing shall be given reasonable notice of, and so then the ACLU gangbanging lawyers will come in and represent them. They'll have a right to be present at the hearing. They'll have a right to have counsel. And guess what? Amazing. If they can't pay for it, we're paying for it. We'll pay for their lawyers. There'll be some limited introduction of evidence. There'll be an examination of witnesses. There'll be a record that is made. Then there'll be some decisions. There can be subpoenas that are sent out. And even some limited discovery, it looks like. We can go and talk about FISA and other protective orders. Classified information will remain classified information. There can be some continuations. Arguments can be allowed. What's the burden of proof? Ooh, preponderance of the evidence. Let's go. So it's like 51%. Okay, if it's a greater weight of the evidence that says this dude is an alien and is a terrorist alien, subject to removal, get out. Not beyond a reasonable doubt. Preponderance of the evidence. Very low standard. Federal rules of evidence shall also not apply, which means hearsay and other things are coming in. If a judge finds the government has met its burden, the judge shall order the alien removed and detained. If the alien was released, the judge shall order that person back into custody. Should be a written order, and then no other right to ancillary relief. No asylum, no withholding of removal for claims against torture, no readjustment of status, and that's the game. So pack your bags and get out. So very interesting development. And we're going to see how aggressively this is being used because it seemingly affords them a lot of leeway. And Judge Boasberg and the other hack judges who are just protecting illegal aliens, giving them due process premium ultra plus plus in every district around the country, judges like Zenas and others who say, you're violating his constitutional rights and his equal protection. They're a non-citizen who broke in and they're trafficking humans in our country and beating their spouses, allegedly. And so now we want to remove these people. Trump designates them terrorists. Marco Rubio says these people are against national security. So pick them up, file this, and let's go. So more background. All you got to do is draft an application. A single judge may grant the application. Just simply finding someone has been identified correctly as an alien terrorist present in the United States and would pose a risk to national security. Amazing. Also have some classified rules, and they got their very first ever application July 2026, and we love to see it. So all this is happening, and the Secretary of State, one of the men in charge who will be making these determinations about American foreign policy and whether these foreign aliens are going to be a terroristic threat, is Marco Rubio. And here's what he had to say at a speech talking about the resurgence of political terrorism not long ago.
This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, a revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, who cannot create, who cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy by seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist or communist or anarchist or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice and liberation, an overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness and have nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us.
And we're not going to let them do it. So the new court is now in session, and we're happy to see the very first application was filed. Just because it's all sealed down right now doesn't mean that it will continue to be sealed. It seemingly is going to be very public, actually. Once it gets underway, there'll be a hearing, presumably, on a lot of these cases. They'll get a bunch of lawyers coming in here, and we're going to break new ground on removing the terrorist aliens from the country. And I would argue anybody who invades the country, anybody who comes in illegally in order to break our rules and enter the nation against our own sovereignty, may have some good reasons for doing it, but they are, in essence, aliens who are terrorizing the sovereignty of the country. So the definition will be fleshed out, no doubt about it. We'll see what ultimately happens, but first time ever, and we're excited to break new ground here. Thank you for joining us as we keep our eye on this brand new court. Hopefully, the court docket fills up. They're going to have to build out their website for all of the petitions that are now making their way in. So we'll keep our eye on this one. The Alien Terrorist Removal Court is now in session. All right, now let's talk about some other very positive developments that happened today, starting with the new surge from the DOJ and the White House. Here's how this story is going down. The largest denaturalization effort ever, now launched by the White House, continuing to surge resources into these people who came into the country, applied to become permanent citizens, got their N-400 form, filled it out under oath and said, oh no, we don't vote in your elections. Oh no, we don't have any criminal history. Oh no, we don't have thefts and rapes and robberies in our past. Let us come in. We'll be great people. Fill out the contract, become citizens. We hand them a beautiful slip of paper that should be honored and cherished. Turns out it's obtained on false and fraudulent pretenses. Now they're going bye-bye. White House saying American citizenship through naturalization is a privilege. America's laws must be valued, upheld, and respected. Otherwise, we're going to undo them. You don't get to have a benefit of your fraud. You can't commit mortgage fraud and then maintain the benefits of the mortgage fraud unless you're Letitia James or Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve. Then no one cares. But now, these deportations, these denaturalizations are being fast-tracked in the largest effort ever. Now getting rid of fraudsters, now getting rid of pervy priests as well. And so here's the background. DOJ now announcing this, now moving to revoke 10 additional criminals, including chomos, scammers, drug dealers, in the largest effort ever. Todd Blanche was out. He said, you know, these 10 criminal aliens, including child sex abusers, a $900,000 Medicare fraudster, a cocaine trafficker, they lied their way into U.S. citizenship. And by the way, many others did as well. Congress people even saying that Kami Mamdani did the same thing. Question on your N-400. We pulled the form up here multiple times. Are you a communist, essentially? Mamdani says, no, I'm not. They say, oh, that's good because we don't want communists here. Turns out he is a communist. So that's more fraud. Now, these are criminal fraud that are now being discovered. But why should that be any different than some other statement about the sanctity of your integrity and your character? No communist here. So those who lied, who have allegiances to foreign lands, should be fleshed out as well. Each of these individuals lacked the good moral character required by law, and they procured citizenship through willful misrepresentations and concealment of their crimes. Under Trump's leadership, this DOJ will continue to aggressively pursue denaturalization and restore integrity to our naturalization process. And so they got a whole press release on this. We'll see exactly who these people are coming up, but this triggered other people to respond to this. And we saw that in Texas, they're pushing back on the Mexican government who is now attacking America for our immigration reform. The Mexican senators, the Mexican presidents, they're saying, you can't treat our people badly. You have to give them everything in your country, which is really rich. And so even Texas now, 26 Republicans are pushing back on the Mexicans down there. And so we'll take a look at that as well. But here's more on these individuals, and there's a whole slew of them, 10 of them now getting denaturalized and hopefully deported very soon. We saw the list articulated here. The complaints in 10 of these cases were filed over the last 30 days. Mark Wayne Mullen said, if you commit fraud during this process, you forfeit the right to keep your citizenship. And it's time to go. He said, we refuse to give a free pass to criminals who cheated their way into American citizenship. Under Trump, if you defrauded this process, you will face the full scope of the Justice Department. And we've only scratched the surface here, baby. Many more complaints are coming. We don't want fraudsters, especially in naturalization. Being an American citizen is a very sacred thing. We know Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts and leftists don't care about that. They think everybody should be a citizen because they want the entire country to change and they want it all to be like all of the other countries and everybody coming in here, bringing with them their values and their cultures and their other concepts of governance that don't comport with American concepts of governance. So now this is being reversed. This first person is gone, going back to Cuba. He's a native of Cuba, became a permanent resident in 2004. His name is Yask Michael Perez. And he operated a purported medical clinic, and he billed Medicare for almost $900,000. Said, I'm not a fraudster, but it turns out he is. He just got hit with a 4-count denaturalization action in Florida, crime of moral turpitude, and he's going bye-bye. Another person called Ceflo Luviano Mojica, 60 years old, from Mexico. He's a native down there, and he lied about carrying a concealed firearm, and he also was convicted of grand theft. He spent 30 days in jail for auto theft. In 1998, he pleaded guilty in Georgia for providing false information on a naturalization application. He admitted he made the false statement, testified under oath, I've never been arrested. No, senor. The United States filed a 2-count denaturalization process in Georgia, and he's going afuera. Same for this dude, Urbano Ortega. This guy, Urbano, sexually assaulted children while employed as a priest in Washington, D.C. He's a native of Mexico and was naturalized back in 2017. He was convicted in the Superior Court of D.C., second-degree child abuse of the sexual variety. He, was touching everything, and he thrusted his tongue into the mouth of a minor. Oh, gosh. Deportation's a little too good. So in 2019, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He's still in custody. The United States is denaturalizing him, and he can go do that crap down in Mexico. This dude, Murtaza Ali from Pakistan, he goes by the name of Muhammad Iqbal. They gave him permanent residency. Then he got naturalized under his alias in 2009 to hide his past crimes. Following his naturalization, a fingerprint expert determined that his fingerprints with immigration benefits were filed under different names. They were the same person. Okay, so identity fraud. Murtaza Ali and Muhammad Iqbal are the same person. Oh, so you lied. He pleaded guilty on immigration benefits scams. What a joke. And then he procured his citizenship by committing immigration fraud. He engaged in unlawful act. He's a liar. He made testimony under oath. And so afuera to him. This dude is named Jimmy Aguero. Also, wow, sexual abuse of a minor stepdaughter. Great. So, welcome to America. Here, become a citizen. A jury found him guilty 8 counts of sexual abuse of a minor. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. DOJ filed a complaint. He's not got good moral character, and your citizenship is gone. Bye. This other guy, Antonio, 53, from Mexico, lied on his identity, purchased identity documents, fake IDs, fake names, replaced his permanent resident card, submitted the false documents, and getting his citizenship, so he's gone. Another dude, Cantu Montalvo. He got naturalized back in 2005, and he said in his testimony, I have never, ever committed a crime or offense. Turns out not true. In fact, in April 2016, conspiracy to distribute 5 kilos of cocaine. A conspiracy he joined back in 2005 before he applied for naturalization. He got 100 months in prison on June 15th. Again, he's getting revoked, and goodbye to him. Denaturalization now underway. Another one on number 8. 2 more to go after this. This guy, Francisco Montano, another one from Mexico. He abused a child. Once again, failed to divulge that. He was later convicted in Texas. 2 counts aggravated sexual assault, 4 counts indecency with a child, as he should not have been naturalized. Now he's gone as well. Then we've got this guy, Marcin Stanislaw Garbaci from Poland. Oh, he's a former Roman Catholic priest, my people. Well, good riddance to him. We don't want him here. Become a lawful permanent resident in 2008, naturalized as a citizen in 2014. He stole, what a priest. He stole over $250,000 in cash collections. Wow, from 3 parishes in South Dakota. Unbelievable. What a jerk. Garbach also secretly recorded a 17-year-old showering. Wow. During a church trip to Poland. Concealed his criminal conduct through the naturalization process, later convicted multiple federal offenses, wire fraud, false tax returns, illicit contact with a minor, and so denaturalized, and he can go straight to hell. And then Martin Garcia, the last one, age 60 from Mexico. This person was admitted and wrote in his application that he had never committed a crime. Turns out he did. He was naturalized and, oh, great. So 19 counts, this dude. In 2022, 19 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child based on acts in 2017. Evidence at trial indicated that the two victims were his neighbors. They were 7 and 8 years old when this abuse began, and he was sentenced to consecutive terms of imprisonment for 15 years to life. Now, he may still be in prison, but once he's done, he's getting the hell out of here. And that sacred grant of citizenship has now been returned back to the people of America. So 10 of them now gone, or on the process of being gone. Once they're out of custody, we'll throw them out with haste. And we're very happy to see that. So shout out to the DOJ for continuing to accelerate all of this. Now over to Texas. As we're doing this, as we're saying, you're gone, you got to go back to Mexico. Mexico, sorry, you got to take all your chomos down there. We're not handling them anymore. Brandon Waltons are saying that the Mexicans are mad about that. So now 26 Texan Republicans are pushing back after a Mexican senator criticized Texas, saying, how could you do this to our people? You have to let us invade your country. And then we still need to collect $50 to $60 billion of remittances from your people so that we can rebuild our country as we continue to attempt to invade you and flood your country with fentanyl. Yeah. So the Texans responded and a bunch of them signed off on this. You can see here is the list. We've got a bunch of people. If you're out in Texas, you may recognize these people, but shout out to the states for pushing back on this. They say, hey, Senator of Mexico and the Senate of the Republic of Mexico. All right, punk, we have received your July 13th letter that was addressed to us in Texas and other border states, and we don't appreciate it. Its timing, substance, and selective omissions leave little doubt about its purpose. During a critical election year in Texas, your correspondence reads to us less like an invitation to cooperation and more like an attempt to inject the political priorities of a foreign government into the domestic affairs of Texas. So the Mexican government now trying to interfere in our elections by sending a nasty gram. So all of the Mexicans in Texas will say, we have to vote against these people. Let us begin by correcting the premise of your letter, Senator. The individuals unlawfully crossing into Texas are not migrants, okay? They are illegal aliens who knowingly violate the laws of both the United States and the state of Texas. Every sovereign nation has both the right and the obligation to determine who may enter its territory. Enforcing those laws is neither immoral nor incompatible with human dignity. You can take your dignity and dignity it up it is the foundation of the national sovereignty. So stop violating it. Your assertion that, quote, the dignity and the life of every migrant must take precedence over any enforcement measure. What the hell is that? The dignity and the life of every migrant must take precedent over your laws? There is no limiting principle to that. Everything will just be dignified. Should we just give them our houses too? Mexican senator? What would you like? Should the dignity of your people matter to you? Maybe you should take care of them so that we don't have to. It fundamentally misunderstands the duty of elected officials in Texas. Our first obligation is to protect the lives, liberties, and properties and constitutional rights of the citizens here, who we were elected to serve. The dignity and security of Texans will always come before the demands of those who choose to violate our laws. And so Texas owes no apology to you for defending its border. We also reject any suggestion that Texas should receive lectures on border security from a government like you that has allowed powerful criminal cartels to dominate vast regions of its territory. Go talk to them. These organizations operate sophisticated human smuggling, sex trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, narcotics enterprises. They have fueled one of the greatest humanitarian public safety crises in modern history. And so abandoning meaningful border enforcement would not save lives. It would guarantee that the cartels would acquire more victims, more profits, and more powers, which is probably what they really care about. It's a senator of a cartel, really. So before requesting legislative collaboration with us, why don't you guys first demonstrate effective control over your own territory and stop lecturing us? Saying your letter also omits several realities that we as Texans confront every day. And this is happening all across the border. You're not going to get a letter like this, though, from Katie Hobbs, okay, or from Arizona, unfortunately, or from New Mexico, who welcomes this. Texas DPS reports that from 11 to mid-2026, more than 335,000 known illegal aliens were booked into Texas county jails. Do you know how much money that costs? Facing more than 601,000 criminal charges, including over 1,100 homicides, along with thousands involving sexual assaults, narcotics, robbery, and other violent offenses. These figures also do not even include the many additional illegal aliens whose immigration status was not even identified or reported back to our agency. Also, Texas spends tens of billions of dollars annually providing education for whatever reason, healthcare, law enforcement, judicial services, and incarceration costs associated with your people. Most of these individuals traveled through Mexico to get here. So why didn't you stop them down at your southern border? Also, Mexican criminal cartels generate billions of dollars each year through human smuggling and trafficking operations that systematically exploit women, children, and vulnerable migrants. They flood our communities with fentanyl and other deadly narcotics. And the economic consequences, you punks, extend far beyond law enforcement, placing additional pressure on housing, yes, healthcare systems, public infrastructure, schools, working families throughout Texas. The downstream effects of the rampant immigration and the mass invasion impacts everybody, which is why it's so shocking that more leftists are on board with this. Everything in their lives costs more. Their taxes go up to pay for what is being handed out to these people. Homes cost more. They're waiting longer in emergency rooms and costs go up. As supply goes down because demand goes up, costs go up. Infrastructure, schools, their kids are getting less attention devoted to them because there's a bunch of illegal aliens in the country. So it's actually like a suicidal ideology. It's actually destroying them as they sit around and they just gobble up the original premise of the Mexican senator who says that it's about dignity and about humanity. Well, how about you have that for your own people? We'll worry about our people, you worry about yours. These burdens are not theoretical. They are borne daily by the Texas taxpayers. And so history also matters too. Remember that Texas secured our independence from Mexico in 1836. Through extraordinary sacrifice at the Alamo, we haven't forgotten, Goliad, San Jacinto, and countless other battles fought by men and women determined to govern themselves. Texas existed as an independent republic before joining the United States in the first place. Now, that history is neither forgotten nor diminished, and so accordingly, we will not accept border policy instruction from officials in Mexico City. Decisions regarding the defense of Texas will be made by Texans and Americans alone. If Mexico sincerely seeks partnership, meaningful cooperation begins with actions rather than rhetoric. Here's how you can start. 1, secure Mexico's southern and northern borders. How about that? Why don't you eliminate the cartel infrastructure that profits from human trafficking and narcotics that is basically in charge of your nation? Why don't you prevent criminal organizations from operating with impunity within Mexican territory? How about that? And also, why don't you cooperate in disrupting the transnational criminal enterprises instead of shifting the consequences of failed governance onto us? Get your own house in order. Stop lecturing us. Those steps would demonstrate a genuine commitment to shared security. And so Texas remains willing to work with neighboring nations on lawful trade, legitimate security cooperation, mutual respect between sovereign governments, of course. Very friendly folks out there in Texas. Such cooperation, however, cannot begin with demands that Texas subordinate the rule of law or the interests of its citizens to individuals who entered our state illegally. We will continue to enforce our laws. We will continue to defend our communities, and we will continue placing Texans first. Texas remains committed to secure borders, constitutional government, and the sovereign right of every nation to enforce its immigration laws without interference from foreign governments. Texas first, Texas forever. Signed, members of the Texas House of Representatives. Let's go. That's the energy that we need to see more of. So Andy Hopper, shout out. Daniel Alder, Ben Baumgardner, Hillary Hicklin, what's up? Richard Hayes, Mark Durazio, all in the House, including these people: Janice Holt, Isaac, Kerwin, Luther, Lowe, Money, Olcott, Oliverson, Katrina Pearson. We got Schofner, Schoolcraft, Richardson, Swanson, Vasut, Wes Verdell, and others out of the great state of Texas, and we need more of that from our states. Don't you come in and lecture us about how we're handling our internal affairs. Do you know how much we've sacrificed for you people? Do you know how much money you siphon out of our economy every year? Billions and billions of dollars going out in remittances, and we got to take care of all these people? Why don't you get your own house in order, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So here's more from Stephen Miller. He's saying, in addition to the other reforms like the Alien Terrorist Court, which has now been invoked, and other efforts to increase the deportations, Miller says now it's time to debank them as well. You cut off the incentives, stop rolling out the red carpet for everybody who's here illegally, and there'll be some real shifts in the demographics that happen naturally as a result.
Are very promising. And then we also have begun in earnest implementing our banking integrity measures. So you may remember President Trump signed an executive order a few weeks ago saying that we are not going to allow illegal aliens to use banking services in this country. You know, contrary to popular perception, the stupid phrase about illegal aliens living in the shadows. Illegal aliens have credit cards, they have bank accounts, and they're paid with direct deposit. So illegal aliens fully participate in the commercial systems, the financial systems of America. Shutting that down is a massive engine for deportation. And so the Treasury Department just issued new guidance to financial institutions, to banks. And so the next step in this process is us meeting individually with banks and financial institutions on cooperating with us to remove illegal aliens from the banking system. Once illegal aliens lose their access to capital, that is going to, again, be a major driver of self-deportation. So these are examples of a few of the things that we're doing to really get those numbers up dramatically and get people out of this country who don't belong here.
Yeah, and until Mexico secures their southern border and stops the flow of fentanyl, maybe we should also tax all the remittances of the people who are here at the tune of 95% or 100%. So that money flowing back gets cut off, because it's the lifeblood. I think in large part, that's why they want so many people here, is because they're getting paid for it. It's tens of billions of dollars every year that are flowing back out of the United States into Mexico as a result of people who are just sending cash back to their families. So you cut that off, that money, those $50 billion, maybe 10 of it's coming from Texas, it goes back to Texas. Weird. The Texans work, the Texans get paid, the Texans have the job, and then the Texans send that money and spend it back in their local government. And then America actually gets rich and wealthy instead of continuing to evaporate as we care for the third worlders. So great developments here. Largest denaturalization effort happening underway. 10 individuals now had their citizenship stripped because they committed naturalization fraud. We also have Texas pushing back on the Mexican government, who is now threatening them essentially and calling them bigots and people who don't care about the dignity of life, really. How about you care about the dignity of your own population? We'll worry about ours. And now the debankings are happening. So big developments. The mechanics are unfolding and the gears are in motion. We'll keep our eye on this one as the DOJ and Homeland Security continue the efforts to restore territorial integrity to America. All right, and one more update on the commies. We have a big report here to talk about, and here's where it's coming from. Communism infiltrating America. Where did it all come from? It has been a long, slow march through the institutions, and now they're popping out, showing their ugly, disgusting faces all over the cables, saying insane things like they're going to eliminate the Supreme Court. They're going to eliminate the Senate. They want to get rid of the Declaration of Independence and reform the entire country into their communist hellscape. But Marco Rubio says a lot of this is coming from Cuba. And he put together a massive report that we'll take a look at here that you can see is about 100 pages long, explaining Cuba, the capital of the 21st century communism that is permeating throughout our Western hemisphere. And we don't want it anywhere near us at all. Communists can go to China and we can reclaim our system of governance in our region of the world. And we'll go through this in detail because there is some good information inside. But before we do, here's what Rubio had to say. For more than 6 decades, the Cuban regime has been the leading sponsor of radical leftism and third worldism in the United States. The State Department is now exposing the full history of Cuban espionage and subversion in our country, saying the American people deserve to know exactly what's happening and where it's coming from. And I would imagine this is only one piece of the puzzle, that there are other subversion efforts from the Chinese, from the Russians, and more. But here's one example of how this is now manifesting itself in America. Fox News shared this clip from this guy, Gustavo Gordillo, who apparently is somebody who immigrated into the United States after apparently hating the United States. Fox reporting that they have a new radical push now, these DSAers. And this guy's the co-chair. His name is Gustavo. He's now calling the Senate an undemocratic institution. They want to eliminate checks and balances and have a total dictatorial control, grant amnesty to all illegal immigrants to reform the entire country, abolish the War Department, pass the Green New Deal, which is just basically a tax and spend maneuver. So you stop your consumption and everything that you do has a financial cost to it in order to save the planet. All your air conditioning, any heating, any cooking, any new purchases are contributing to the death of the world. So now we get control over it all. They want a wealth tax. They want to replace the presidency and the Supreme Court with a new executive and a judiciary that's subordinate to and chosen by the Congress, because there are really no eternal principles that would establish a government. It's whatever the communists want. This is how you end up with 100 million people dead under Mao. A 32-hour work week with no reduction in pay or benefits, and apparently that money is just going to come out of their butts. Here's how this conversation went from Gustavo.
So you don't want to abolish the Senate, the United States Senate, because that's what Article 1 is.
The United States Senate is an undemocratic institution. It gives more representation to people in smaller states than to the 30 million people in California.
So you've got the House of Representatives, which is population driven, and then you've got the Senate. So every state, if you're a small state, you still get 2 senators, even though you only get maybe 1 congressman, in order to make all of the states have fair representation. So you say, I'm just confused.
When you ask normal Americans if Congress and the Senate and our political system is working for them, most people are very unhappy with the political system, and they say it's not working for them.
Okay, so that doesn't really explain his objection to it. It's not democratic. It is. It's actually more democratic than I think it should be. We have the 17th Amendment, which was a dumpster fire, which allowed the popular election of the senators, which we shouldn't have ever had that, so that the state legislatures could still elect the senators, and the states as a unit, as a governing unit in our system, would actually have a say in national policy. But we actually made it more democratic, much to our dismay. So then he just says people are unhappy with Congress. And so I guess that's the governing standard. If you're unhappy with something, you can just abolish it and replace it with something that makes people feel good, which is like Mamdani saying we're going to give you free buses, which I don't think is happening, or free food, which I don't think is happening. And you're seeing what's happening to these communist adjacent locations where people are fleeing. California is losing population. Crazy.
When we think about the 250th anniversary of the United States, and we think about our proudest moments in U.S. history, I think of times like when ordinary people rose up and they changed the Constitution to abolish slavery, to give women the right to vote.
Everyone's proud of that.
And
that's a nationwide pride in the country.
But back in those moments, those were considered radical movements because those people dared to say we need transformative change in the United States.
Right.
And I
well,
think
we
that
struggle to become a more perfect union. But I just want to ask you again, do you want to abolish the United States Senate? Because you said you approve of Article 1, but then you said you didn't think the Senate works.
We think that the Senate should be reformed, that we should have a more democratic government system. But that's a long-term change that we're seeking. Yeah. And in the short term, we're focused on issues like affordability, like freezing the rent, which we've just done in New York, like creating a universal childcare system, which we're also taking steps toward doing, like fixing our energy grid.
Yeah, so that's what they're talking about. And a lot of this has been materializing over generations, and it's now emerging. And they have a lot of popularity behind them. It's a real thing. It's not something that we should take lightly because we've got a whole multi-generational brainwashing operation that's been happening. I've lived through it. I came up through the colleges. I got lectured every single day for having my political opinions, even had them back then. And I was a very tiny minority in many of these institutions and these groups. And that was years ago, okay? It's gotten a lot worse since then. And it's been that way my entire life, so 40 years and longer than that. So in addition, we have now the State Department explaining exactly what's going on. And these people think that you can shoot people in the neck like they did to Charlie Kirk. They can think and celebrate when their political enemies are taken out. And we're seeing it emerge, and it's a real threat. Here's what the State Department had to say before we see the report.
Tommy, how did the Cuban regime manage to suss out law enforcement location data, ICE facility, ICE movement data? I just interviewed Cuba's ambassador here at the UN last week. He said it's not true. There's no spying. They've never conducted any espionage targeting the United States or Americans.
We had a man charged in 2023 indicating that there's that espionage. That is completely untrue. That is well documented and is documented in the report, the decades-long history of espionage in the United States of America. And I also think, importantly, the broader context of the ministerial that was just held last week, documenting the fact that we are seeing far-left terror actions, far-left terror attacks in the United States, now accounting for the largest single form of attacks based off ideological group. We are seeing a surge of far-left terrorism, of far-left extremism in the United States, in our hemisphere, but also the world. And as the secretary said during that ministerial, Cuba is a supporter of this. The Cuban regime is a supporter of this. And this report shows the receipts. It shows the decade-long effort by the Cuban regime to undermine our national security.
Yeah, and it's not just the Cubans. As we saw in President Trump's speech the last week when he unveiled all of the Chinese influence, it is rampant. They've got the universities taken over. They've got the law schools taken over. All of those people go into higher positions of power. They graduate from the colleges. They graduate from the law schools. They become judges who are communists. They go into government. They become communists. They start to run the CIA like John Brennan did, who used to be a member of the Communist Party. They have infiltrated virtually everything. And now is their moment. Now they're emerging to say, it's our time. We're going to take over. They realize there's enough anger. They've been able to devolve the country so badly. They've been able to siphon out any civic education from the youth. Nobody can even identify what the three branches of government are, let alone name something in the Bill of Rights. They don't understand the promise of liberty. And in many ways, a lot of the American dream has been stripped away from them in the name of equity and inclusivity and diversity. And they've invaded the country with tens of millions of foreigners. And so an American slice of the pie gets eaten by some illegal alien. And then they look around and they say, what am I supposed to do about this? So they turn to communism as their only relief. And so now they're emerging and they're winning elections. They're even beating the Democratic Party, and they're going to start to drag them to that side. And it may not be something that is a present threat. They may not take over the nation at this moment and this election, but that's the whole point. It's a slow march through the institutions. And once they get a beachhead, they're going to continue to advance, and we're going to be in big trouble unless we deal with it accordingly. So here's one more clip before we get into some of the actual meat and potatoes. But this is Linda Sarsour. There's an entire X account called DSA Watch now, which is tracking these lunatics. And this is a Democrat who's actually tracking these people, according to this account. And this lady, who has been around for a long time, wants to, I guess, eliminate the Declaration of Independence, according to this clip.
This is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. This is quote unquote America's birthday. And the question historically is going to be, what were we doing on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence? Do we have the audacity to sit around and say that we want to build a document that is our values and our principles and bring millions of Americans around it? And so I see people on the streets, I see mutual aid efforts, I see young people running for office, I see people of color, marginalized people getting up and saying, I'm the leader that I've been waiting for, and seeing people rally around those leaders. And so don't give up hope, folks. There's more to come. We're going to survive this. And some of us are going to be on the fight back, and some of us are going to be on the other side waiting to catch you when we win, because there got to be other people that are going to be building the thing that you're going to come to once we win this fight back, because we will win, my friend. So keep your chin up, your head up. It is the blessed month of Ramadan right now, so I've had a lot of time to reflect on this.
Okay, great. So yeah, they're not going to give up. They're highly motivated. And unfortunately, many people in America are just very complacent. They just don't really, have a lot invested in the perpetuating of the system. We saw what happened during COVID. I thought if any time we were going to have people rise up and say enough with this crap, it would be something like that. And it didn't. Most people just sat around like, I don't want to get a sniffle. I got to get killed by COVID. And so everybody just fell down by the wayside like limp noodles. And now we've got a real communist threat that is emerging. And so what do we do about it? So Anna Paulina Luna, in addition to what is happening with Cuba, we see she's also saying we got to do something about the Chinese. Now, in light of recent declassified information regarding the CCP's efforts to interfere in U.S. elections, I've also written a letter to Marco Rubio, urging him to immediately cancel or suspend any and all F1 and J1 student visas held by Chinese nationals, which I think is a good start. And we're going to have to really revisit this money in politics situation, really revisit the flows of capital that come through the 501c3s and come from overseas, and people who are not registering as FARA, people not being prosecuted for FARA violations. We need to get a total and utter clampdown to identify what influencers are being paid by these foreign governments or by these foreign aligned entities. There should be, like a community note on everybody's forehead who's getting paid in any way, shape, or form by a foreign entity, right here on the forehead, mandatory disclosures. And it should be across the board, all nations, everywhere. We want to see who is influencing our nation. So in addition, cut off the problematic nations from all immigration. Marco Rubio gets this letter from Luna. She says, hey, Marco, I write today to urge the immediate suspension and cancellation of all F1 and J1 student visas held by Chinese nationals currently studying at higher education institutions across the United States. They're communist incubators. If you've ever been to a college, you walk in and you come out like Mao. Considering recently declassified intelligence saying the CCP and their party have efforts to interfere in our elections. Now, as you're aware, Trump's recent address to the nation detailed newly declassified documents alleging that beginning in 2020, the Chinese government carried out what is believed to be one of the largest cyber espionage campaigns targeting American election data in history, including the theft of voter names, addresses, phone numbers, political affiliations, and other registration information. These revelations demand a serious and immediate response from every agency with the authority to act, including the Department of State. That's you. Our nation's universities remain one of the most vulnerable access points for foreign intelligence services. Given the scale of the interference described in the declassified files, we cannot, in good conscience, continue to allow the current visa pipeline to serve as a potential vector for CCP influence operations targeting our democratic institutions. And as I stated publicly following the president's address, every single Chinese student visa needs to be canceled immediately. This is a necessary and proportionate response to a documented state-sponsored effort to undermine the integrity of America's elections. We cannot afford to wait to further compromise while deliberations continue. We urge the Department of State to immediately review and revoke all active Chinese national student visas and to halt the issuance of new visas to Chinese nationals pending a full accounting of the extent of this infiltration and a comprehensive review of vetting procedures at our institutions of higher education. Thank you for your attention to this matter and for your continued leadership in protecting our national security. And this should go for all the newscasters too. Any Chinese money, any foreign money from any nation coming in should be identified and disclosed aggressively, if not made illegal. You just can't take money from that for this cause. And tighten that up aggressively because it's all going to destroy America. Now, here is the report. Marco Rubio with his 100-page Cuba and Communism report coming out from the Department of State, walking us through the details of exactly what they do and how they do it. We'll hit the highlights here and take a look at some photographs, but here's the background. This has been going on for nearly 7 decades. Sustained campaign of subversion against the United States. And in fact, this campaign has infiltrated the highest reaches of the US government. John Brennan, the former CIA director, has a record of being a communist who ran the CIA, cultivated generations of American activists, backed an unprecedented wave of left-wing terrorism, and carried out one of the most damaging foreign intelligence penetrations in American history. The Cuban campaign against America is unique. It's irregular. It's covert. Even at the peak of its military power, Havana never possessed the capacity to beat us in an armed conflict. So instead, they perfected a new model for a long war of attrition organized around espionage, infiltration, sabotage, proxy network, and a revolutionary infrastructure designed to turn America against itself. Sound familiar? Now, in contrast to every other aspect of Cuba's failed state, this has been successful. For over half a century, this small island nation with a chronically failing economy has built a vast hemispheric network. The Cubans trained and armed tens of thousands of left-wing guerrillas, oversaw violent insurgencies that plunged multiple continents into chaos and even backed deadly extremist attacks against the U.S. itself. The island itself became a premier safe harbor for fugitive American terrorists and a forward operating base for a rotating cast of hostile foreign powers. And they have infiltrated everything. Top levels of the State Department, the National Security Council, the Pentagon, operating undercover for decades without detection. But the most successful and enduring sphere here has been on the ideological front. Since the 1960s, this regime in Cuba has served as the beating heart for a new kind of Marxism. In the United States, they devoted themselves to cultivating a coalition. They built a sprawling network that shaped the share of the power in America. Black Panthers, Weather Underground, all the way up to Antifa. And today, they continue to maintain their ties with powerful leftist nonprofits, anti-ICE collectives, socialist groups, Marxist militant organizations, and more. Now, they've been doing this for a long time. It's been one of the animating principles of their foreign policy, and they've always seen revolution in America as an end unto itself. Have us turn on ourselves like a cancer and eat ourselves to death. Now, this peculiar form of Marxism was uniquely fitted for this. Soviet communism was frequently driven by more practical great power concerns, but not here. All this is a liberation of the global South and the destruction of the Yankee regime. Now, the common depiction of Cuba as a former state of the Soviet Union is at best incomplete. They have maintained a close partnership with Moscow, but they were never just a proxy for the Soviets. In fact, they helped to build a distinct form of communism, revolutionary leftism, built around racial, social, even civilizational grievances, more than economic class conflict. Okay, it's whites versus black, Hispanics versus white, social grievances, trans everybody up, destroy the nuclear family, and everybody will turn on themselves. Now, this has thrived. A lot of what's happened in Leninism, Stalinism, and Maoism has been diminished, but not the Cubans. They are the solidified ideological capital of the modern radical left. Wild. So, here's more. Fidel Castro said this in a letter to Celia Sanchez in 1958, saying, "I swore to myself that the Americans were going to pay dearly for what they were doing. When this war is over, a much wider and bigger war will begin for me. The war that I'm going to launch against them, I am saying to myself that this is my true destiny. In America, the left's growing disillusionment with the Soviet project came with a crackdown, blacklist, Senator McCarthy, American hero, investigations and prosecutions, anti-communist laws, and we rooted them out for a long time. But Cuba was a harbinger of a new kind of revolution. It was animated by a missionary zeal that Moscow had long forgotten, and it's now emerging again. They had a tricontinental conference in 1966, and the conference assembled more than 500 revolutionary delegates from 82 countries. Here's a list of them, all coming together to subvert the system. It's not an open war. You can think of it like terrorism, except political. They're not going to attack you head on. They're going to infiltrate and then destroy from within. Havana was telling a new story, one that was both more romantic and more radical than the Soviets. It was a story where the Black Panthers and the Puerto Rican militants and the anti-war student radical were all part of the same drama. And they were fighting for the oppressed peoples of the world. Here's one image of that. In fact, in an 18-month period between 71 and 72, the FBI counted some 2,500 bombings on American soil as their ideology spread throughout our nation. And here, while the old Soviet left had been built around the party, labor unions, and economic class struggles, this is not this. The new left was animated by black power, radical feminism, third world liberation, and the radical rejection of Western culture, like when they destroy the Odyssey, history, and identity in all of its forms. As this report will show, it's nearly impossible to overstate the influence that this had in both America and across the world, saying that all of this is the influence of the movement, and this is how we break America. Now, many of these organizations have disappeared since the 60s and 70s, but it now has been burrowed much further into the institutions. They've gotten American activists. They've infiltrated the universities, as we've said, espionage networks, becoming the spiritual hub and become a pilgrimage for all of the people who believe this ideology. Here's more on the exportation of this. Multiple meetings, Cuban revolutions. They talk about the Black Power movement. These ideas did not originate on American soil. They were created down there and then exported. They made weekly calls on the radio to urge American blacks to take up armed struggle against their country and to exacerbate the racial problem in the United States, exploiting the conflict to divide the nation. It happens every day. You feel it everywhere you go. Almost getting worse by the year. And the fingerprints are backed over everything, including Latin American politics as well. We had the Sandinista Revolution, one of Havana's great victories in the hemisphere. An unbelievable amount of arms to the leftists. The movement also benefited from broader networks. Here are some more photographs of this. Puerto Rico revolutionaries, another source of interest from the Cubans. Venezuela, also the subject of some of their scrutiny. But in the global fingerprints, by the mid-1980s, Latin America was the site of more acts of international terrorism against the U.S. than any other region in the world. In fact, they have trained up and built some 27 leftist guerrilla groups, totaling 25,000 armed and trained members in the Western Hemisphere, right on our doorsteps. In the 1980s, the CIA estimates placed some 49,000 Cuban personnel in sub-Saharan Africa, 80% of whom were combat troops, getting ready to attack. Then they've got espionage. One guy, former chief of counterintelligence at the CIA named James Olson, said, quote, "I would rank them as probably the most aggravating intelligence service I've ever worked against. That's not just because they're so devious and ruthless, but because they're so good." And another one, the Cuban intelligence service has always been against the United States exclusively. All the other countries where they work, they do it to direct activity against the United States. So they've got a good intelligence service called the Dirección de Inteligencia, the DI. known until 1989 as something else. Today, it remains one of the most effective human intelligence operations in the world. Over the past 6 decades, they played a central role in a dazzling array of operations, from infiltrating universities, organizing revolutionary movements, training Palestinian terrorists in South Yemen. And several high-ranking professionals who've worked against them are very outspoken about this threat. They say that they still have unidentified agents operating inside the United States, including numerous senior agents within the government. Yeah, I believe it. You might have like Maria Salazar. She might be one of them. Discussing the issue on a 2020 podcast, CIA Chief Counterintelligence of the CIA, James Olsen, said, "They are very formidable. They were very professional. They were very disciplined. They had a vendetta against the United States. Castro focused all of its efforts on national security to take down America, and they're much better than the KGB ever was." Cuba quickly came to occupy a prized place in Moscow's global anti-American infrastructure, and today they organize and enjoy many of the same competitive advantages. Their access to the U.S. remains unique. Like every other aspect of their subversion, the threat posed by them today is compounded by its alliance with America's most prominent adversaries, including China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and more. They've also got a lot of spy craft capabilities, several characteristics that are different than some of the other communists. They actually recruit diehard ideologues, okay? Not just paid mercenaries, people who really are true believers. This is one reason why U.S. universities are a premier target of this. Fertile ground for recruiting new ideologically sympathetic young Americans who will ascend to positions of power, happening everywhere. And other testimony explains this has been a top priority. As one former Cuban agent recounted, the regime's intelligence operation seeks to identify politically engaged leftist students at elite universities who will go on to occupy important positions in the private sector and in the government, which I think is accomplished, mission accomplished. They've done that. Cuban organizations and other institutions maintain scholarships, and there's a striking number of elite universities in the U.S. that has this going on. In fact, there are educational exchange agreements with nearly 80 U.S. universities. Insane. They also develop long-term placement strategies, targeting candidates to activate at the most important time. Did a lot of damage to our interests. They also have propaganda, general ideological and political influence operations. And the doctrine operates according to several asset categories. Here are some people who, in fact, were active. This dude, active from 1973 to 2023, just got out of there. His name is Victor Manuel Roca, infiltrated the White House National Security Council, the Department of State, and the U.S. Southern Command. Amazing. This person, Ana Belén Montes, 1984 to 2001, once again, NSC, the Pentagon, and Congress. And then we had the WASP network. CIA, they infiltrated that, dismantled back in 1998. And Walter Kendall Myers, Department of State and the CIA. Everywhere. So they walk us through each one of these dudes. Here's this guy, 73 years old. He was secretly acting for decades as an agent for the Cubans. In April 24, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to conspiring as an agent of a foreign government. One of the highest reaching and longest lasting infiltrations in the government by a foreign agent. Naturalized U.S. citizen, perfect. Where did he go to school? Yale, Harvard, and Georgetown. Incredible, like the three of them. Before joining the State Department, then would go on to serve in influential roles. Also, White House National Security Council, was ambassador, and oversees all military activities as the commander, an advisor to the commander of U.S. Southern Command. Crazy times. This other lady was born on a U.S. Army base. Army psychiatrist was her father. Montes was then recruited as a graduate student at Johns Hopkins. She became a senior Cuba analyst, then admitted to revealing the identities of 4 undercover officers down there in Cuba. Wow, what a traitor to the country. She was arrested September 2001, 10 days after the 9/11 attacks. And she was outing our own agents. These other people, Walter Myers, Gwendolyn Myers, seen here. couple of communist Cubans. They also have the WASP network, one of the largest Cuban spy rings ever uncovered on American soil until its collapse. The network was led by many others, and they would target people. Cuban intelligence penetrated the group deeply and used them against America. Then they've got Terrorism. Interesting. Saying that they brought 10,000 American activists to Cuba. Then you've got guys like Michael Moore who go down there and make propaganda videos about them. Say the Cuban healthcare is better than American healthcare to brainwash our people. We won't fight no rich man's war. Then they go mainstream. And they get, oh, look who it is. Karen Bass. Wow. Who just stole the election from Spencer Pratt. Amazing. Bass's friendliness towards the communist regime was not dissipated with age. In fact, the second, Karen Bass, is the current LA mayor. She was a leading Venceramos organizer in the Southern California and visited Cuba frequently. She chaired the Congressional Black Caucus and was one of the finalists for Joe Biden's VP until he picked Kamala. Her friendliness with the communist regime is not dissipated. She went down to Cuba in 2016 as part of a delegation and mourned the death of Comandante en Jefe, a great loss to the people of Cuba. She's running LA. They have solidarity delegations. Propaganda continues on. Revolutionary tourism all across America. And then, of course, the race revolution. Make everybody hate each other in the country. Splice everybody up by race and treat everybody differently by the color of their skin. So this has been going on for a long time. Unintentional strategy of the foreign policy of Cuba. Since the 60s, they have served as the revolutionary capital for black nationalists, separatists, and militants, formed and played a foundational role in forming black power ideology, creating black extremists through international racial solidarity. Strategy was apparent from the very first Castro regime. There was a long procession of black musicians, athletes, celebrities, and activists that all went down to Havana. They signed fat contracts with all black PR firms and then wanted to cultivate positive feelings toward that community. And then say the white man is all the problem and then create internal strife throughout the country. So that went on since the very beginning. Cuba's role in forming this militant third worldist consciousness among black radicals was not just ideological, but institutional. They worked doggedly to build close political relationships with many people in the Black Power movement and acted as the place of world revolutionary capital. Figures like Carmichael also typified Cuba's influence in driving a faction of the black civil rights movement to embrace political violence, to denigrate and integrate into the society. And yep, there's a story. More mugshots after killing a trooper, instigating it, creating more of it, and then boom, BLM comes out. Incredible. Yeah. Black Lives Matter was the blueprint of what the power of a black woman looks like and celebrated that she was able to die a free woman in Havana. BLM Grassroots published a statement honoring the comrades down there under Castro, and then all infused the communist language, saying that even they would claim to develop and train young black activists according to the Cuban program, all being exploited. All this came on the heels of their gleeful support for the George Floyd uprisings. As protests and riots swept across America, Cuban state media issued daily commentary saying the U.S. is systemically racist, and the Cuban president said the same thing. Difficult to overstate the success of this Shakur strategy. Shakur's celebrity status serves as another example as how this third world leftism has graduated from the fringes to the mainstream. Her death was not just mourned by the BLM activists. She got the NAACP praising her. Ayanna Pressley tweeted, "Rest in power," when she died because she's a communist. And Maxine Waters, Crazy Maxine, wrote to Castro urging him not to extradite Shakur back to the United States, saying she was a freedom fighter and needs asylum in Cuba. So they've got front groups and other fellow travelers. Let's see who these people are. They got the ICAP, which promotes goodwill towards Cuba. So a foreign entity here on behalf of a foreign entity. National Network in Cuba. Lots of lines here on this map connecting Cuba around the world. Pastors for Peace is another organization. Haitian Women for Haitian Refugees. We've got enough of those. National Lawyers Guild is one of the most persistently relevant and insidious organizations. Tell me about it. Saying the association of extreme left lawyers and radical street activists has played a role in the disproportionate share of far left terror and violence that has plagued the United States. The lawyers, man. Throughout its history, it has maintained intimate ties to Cuban communist regimes and advanced these far left causes, including the Weather Underground and more. From its very existence, it was a de facto communist front group to organize and agitate for revolution. True, still is that today. Since then, the NLG has become one of the most radical and violently left extremist groups. Several affiliates of the Guild have participated in far left terrorism. They actually create legal defense shields for left-wing extremist groups. Today, they pursue the same core mission as the beginning. They have mass defense and legal observer programs. They deploy legal observers and instigate problems like what we saw with the insurgency in Minnesota. Other groups, Cuba Nexus, so many of them. It's everywhere. That's why I'm talking about the money. We got to cut off the money. We got to find out where the money's coming from and just cut it off. Singham Networks as well. Also here, former Marxist militant organizer, Singham, Neville Roy Singham, Shanghai-based American technology magnate who has emerged in recent years as like the new George Soros. He has spent a ton of money, and other groups have received 28 million, another 22 million coming from these groups. Another firm, 785 million, began dumping this money into radical activist groups. In fact, funding 2,000 far-left groups operating across the planet. $401 million sent to leftist organizations. We don't have anything like that on our side. Singham Network groups have been involved in a disproportionate share of left-wing political activities, anti-ICE clashes, no kings protests, many of the times also exploiting Cubans' influence infrastructure, paying for all sorts of attacks, lots of high-profile money coming in. The New York chapter of the Democratic Socialists got 4,000 rapid response activists. We saw that in Minneapolis right there. Hosted the DSA's Immigrant Justice Working Group training meetings. It's all that cash, man. Also, Code Pink. We learned about them. They're not really doing too much these days. Not really protesting the Iranian war. But they were out back during the Bush years, 2017. Roughly 25% of the funding came from Neville Singham. Also funding aircraft and more. And then the DSA. This is a particularly potent illustration of what Cuba is doing. DSA was not founded as Cuban intelligence or influence. It was born in 1982 as a fusion of socialist movements. Today, it maintains a fierce, almost religious commitment, though, to the Cuban regime. Not because the group is controlled by them per se, but because it's now simply de facto policy orthodoxy on the American far left. And here are some more images from them. Layers and layers of infrastructure. In 2025, they sent another delegation down to Cuba. They operate a fund soliciting donations to dismantle the U.S. empire, directing the funding down to Cuba, that it acts as a clearinghouse for all of these activities. And they're taking it international. Over the past decades, Havana has leveraged those capabilities to build alliances across the world. The threats posed by the network within America is compounded by the group's power outside of America. Russia, of course, would be happy to see their ideology and their efforts work. Same thing with China. They've got a good relationship with Cuba. They refer to it as good brother, good comrade, good friend. China maintains persistent intelligence gathering presence in Cuba because it's near the U.S. As noted above, China and Russia have reportedly tripled their intelligence personnel in Cuba. And a growing Chinese intelligence presence is there at the facilities. They actively run 3 of Cuba's 18 known SIG-INT facilities per the Wall Street Journal. And so they've got massive support from tier 1 nation states. Same with Iran. State sponsors of terrorism. They are forming strategic partnerships with Cuba in recent years. And so I think this is all maybe setting the table for some action in Cuba. Havana has also issued its relationship with Tehran to integrate its overseas solidarity networks into the axis of resistance. Other groups are continuing to form, and that is the report. It began with Fidel Castro's penned words in 1958. This is going to be much bigger and wider than a small conflict. For 67 years, the regime has waged that war on every front. Armed guerrillas, trained terrorists, sheltered fugitives, infiltrated the government, cultivated American elites, built influence networks, opened the Western Hemisphere to hostile foreign powers, sought to undermine, degrade, destabilize America with spies and soldiers, but also with students and intellectuals, with terror cells, solidarity committees and nonprofit networks, intelligence officers operating under diplomatic cover. Also with private exchanges, nonprofits, everything, they're everywhere. This is what makes Cuba unique. Other hostile regimes have stolen secrets and more. Cuban did and does all those things, but they have never recognized the neat distinctions that others have. There's no lines separated. Even as its economy teeters on the brink, they have power and influence across the world. It's like a distributed, decentralized communist terror group. Their agents and operatives maintain a foothold in hundreds of front groups, solidarity networks, and more. Many of their upheavals, the most significant ones in American political history, like George Floyd, Antifa, pro-terror activism, can be linked in some way to the Cubans. So from its perch off the coast of Florida, modern Cuba plays a key role in supporting major terror networks. So they're going to get some liberation down there, it feels like. At some time, the regime continues to operate an extensive hard intelligence network, and the danger is compounded by its new alliances. And so their assault on the United States was never a quarrel over economic policy. It is much bigger than that. And so to mistake Cuba's poverty for harmlessness is to misunderstand that the threat entirely. Today, it's a connective tissue to the broader anti-American coalition, including Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, and more, all happening inside our own borders. And so that's the report from Rubio. And it is extensive, and it certainly seems to be accurate to us. We've lived this. We watch it happening every day. And it does feel like there is a massive network across the planet. Stuff that is much more than organic, right? It is actually being organized. It's very interesting when you see these protests and these movements just pop up. Who's paying for all of this? Where is all this money coming from? Well, we know. It's coming from nation states. It's coming from Cuba. It's coming from China. It's coming from Russia. It's coming from Iran. And it is manifesting itself in our body politic, and it cannot be allowed to happen anymore. So, of course, first step in solving a problem is to identify the problem. And I think that this may be a primer for what is coming next in Cuba. We'll, of course, see they are in our hemisphere and posing, according to this report, a real clear and present danger. So how do we defeat the communists? We have to defeat the communists. And so this is a good place to start. Now, here's more from Stephen Miller saying, we have to recognize what this is. It's leftist terrorism, from Miller.
Here in the United States, we have taken the necessary and essential action of formally recognizing left-wing violence as a form of political terrorism that is a direct threat to our national security and the survival of our Republican form of government. President Trump issued a directive, in our parlance, it's called a National Security Presidential Memorandum, or NSPM, NSPM 7 to be exact, that directs for the first time in American history all of our law enforcement and intelligence agencies to work together to disrupt, identify, defund, debank, arrest and prosecute these political terrorists that are operating in our country. It's very important to understand that left-wing political terrorism seeks as its ultimate end the overthrow of our system and form of government. And we've seen this has taken place many times in many places throughout the years, and Secretary Rubio has provided you many examples. Left-wing terrorism always ends in bloodshed, misery, and suffering. It only can travel in one direction. There's no point at which the left-wing terrorist is satisfied with his gains and ceases progressing. Inevitably, left to run its course, it always becomes a gulag. It always becomes the mass imprisonment of political enemies, the stripping of their rights and freedoms, inflicting immense pain, humiliation, suffering, in order to establish complete and total control. Control through psychological and physical and actual terror. And we have to understand that that is the scope and the extent of the threat that we face.
And then it continues until they end up killing themselves, and then the whole society collapses at some point, just like we saw in Soviet Union land and in Mao's reign, and the list goes on and on. So it's a real problem. We've been watching this cancer continue to grow our entire lives. And now we've identified one big component of the problem, something that nobody else even wanted to talk about, how they're commandeering a lot of America's process for their own nefarious purposes, to make us fight amongst ourselves, to just agitate across race, to agitate across gender, to slowly just whittle away the societal fabric. There's a tapestry of society where your values and your principles and your beliefs and your religion and your culture all interweave with each other to create a very strong society that can't be ripped apart. Over the years, it's just like a razor blade, cutting and cutting and cutting until we're all ripped into bits and shreds, and we can be conquered without even firing a military shot through the front door. So, great report by Rubio. Appreciate that now being dropped for us. Shout out to Luna for also saying it's much broader than just Cuba. They are backed by other bad actors. We've seen this evidence come out in Trump's report. And so we're going to keep our eye on the communists, and we're appreciating for once in my life, the government, the executive branch under President Trump is identifying the problem and working to solve it. And with that effort, I think we'll be victorious. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for sharing this video so that people know exactly what is going on out there. And we'll see you back here on the next one. All right, friends, if you are just joining us, what a beautiful stream it has been. Thank you for being here. We had some good segments today and some fun stuff we talked about. First and foremost, we had one of these lunatics attack a building out there in New York. The dude has been arrested and presumably will be charged with a bunch of crimes. We'll see if there's anything terror related, but we got all the details on this and are going to be waiting for the docs to hit the docket. Then we talked about Trump's new never before used court. And we don't get to do that here. It's like, opening up a fresh new present on Christmas morning. It's like this new alien terrorist court, like peeling off one of those little pieces of plastic on the ends of some new electronics. Like, oh, it's so satisfying. And so we've got that now. We took a look at the docs that have been filed under seal. We took a look at the first order ever from this court. First time for you, first time for me. Pretty nice. And then we saw some other mechanics of how this will all work. And presumably there'll be more stuff that will hit the public docket soon. So the first person is now making their way through, an alien terrorist getting deported, presumably very quickly here. And we're looking forward to that. We then talked about the largest denaturalization effort ever now underway. We saw 10 bad hombres had their citizenship papers all revoked or in the process of being canceled because they lied on their immigration forms and did some very bad things to some children. And we don't want them here. They lied about who they are and what they've done. So it's time to get the hell out. Then we saw the Texans not playing around. They submitted a response back to the Mexican Senate and said, get the hell out of here, amigos. We're not entertaining this nonsense from you. We're going to defend our own border. Stop lecturing us about being nice to the people who are leaving your country to get out of your dumpster. So then we got Stephen Miller and then Cuba and the DSAs all were here today. We got some good details on exactly how this network is built out in a 100-page doc, courtesy of Marco Rubio. A lot more history there. Obviously, you can spend some time on that. State.gov, they'll have the full thing over there. But it makes sense. And now we know how it's working. So it's been a beautiful stream, my friends. Thank you for joining us. I saw some great new donations came in. Thank you for sending those in. And we had a beautiful members-only morning stream today. We talked about, The Backstab by Lisa Murkowski. Wow. The Save America Act. We'll see if there's anything that they can do on that, but she's now just knifing America in the back. She's like, well, some real people in Alaska can't vote, and so nobody gets election integrity. Thank you for nothing, Lisa. Then we talked about Sonny Hostin's son, who called his mama and said, Mom, come help me. And then Sonny said, hey, I'm a lawyer. Let my son go. And so on and so forth. So we went through that body cam, and that was a lot of fun. We had a good time. So thanks for becoming a member. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time for the members only morning stream. Trying to line up some interviews this week, which I think will be some good ones, talking about some election integrity stuff. Don't think I've got anything lined up for tomorrow, but we'll have some good stuff cooking in the mornings. Thanks for joining us. And we got some new members here. Hey, biology always wins. Good to see you. A member for 12 months. Good to see you, biology. Elk Plow. I'm a third-generation legal immigrant. Shout out, Elk Plow. Thank you for doing it legally. It's simple. You're illegal. Go home now. Don't care if you've been in the U.S. 20 years or 2 seconds. Couldn't agree more. It's about the principle of the matter. It's like if you steal someone's car and you just hold on to it for a long time, does it become yours? Is there like adverse possession on a vehicle or on citizenship or something? No, there's not. Elk Plow, I'm with you. Thank you for doing it legally. Shout out to all of our legal immigrants. And we're glad you're here. What's up, Sev Russ? Hey, 28 months as a member, man. A lot of babies for a single guy. Good to see you, Sev Russ. How many babies is that, man? Thank you for being here for so long. It's great to see you. We have a great members-only community, my man. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Sev Russ, for being here. And it's a lot of babies. You know, it's a lot of babies. You too. Thank you, Sev Russ. Hey, Geegum Geegum, I placed some Rubio's updates in the comments. Amazing. Yeah, great. Thank you for this. So this might even be... So thank you for keying this off for us, Geegum Geegum, because I got an email as well this morning from the Rubio fam. And let me share this one with you to show you what they had to say. So the Rubios, Donald Rubio is still in the hospital. And here's my update. Then we'll read Geegum's. Rob, thank you so much. It means a lot to us. The open heart bypass procedure went well for Donald Rubio. He is in the ICU for another day or so. Then he'll be back to the cardiac unit. He is expected to make a full recovery, but it will take a while. Healing and recovery will be fast and sometimes slow. He asked me to send his love to you and to the Watcher fam. Shout out. Please update them tomorrow. We are so sorry to have missed the baby shower. I know it must have been so much fun. It was a ton of fun. It was a great time, but they're healing up. Much higher priority. So they're out of surgery. They're getting some healing done. Here's some more updates from Geegum. And thank you guys for checking in with them. And Geegum, great to see Geegum at the virtual baby shower. Donald had the bypass surgery yesterday morning on the 17th, and then he was put in the ICU. I spent the afternoon with him yesterday. He was slowly coming out of anesthesia, orienting himself, and by the time I left at 8 p.m., he was asking his nurse if he could walk a little, which is great. This morning, Donald says his nurses are telling him that for someone who had just had open heart surgery, he's doing really well. Amazing news. God bless. Says, although this was shockingly unexpected and very fast, Tuesday ER, Friday surgery, he has the best cardiac team. He's been fearless, strong, and determined to get his health back as soon as possible. I'm holding it together and doing the planning for him coming home. Amazing. From Cheryl Lynn. 2 good updates. Man, thank you, Geegum, for that. Keep the prayers and good wishes pouring in. Y'all know they would do it for you. And so thank you, friends, for continuing to pray for the Rubios. They are very amazing and good people and prayer warriors for many of those who needed it. So it's our honor to be able to send it back to them. And may God continue to bless them and watch over them. Boom Shakalaka. Hey, happy birthday, Boom Shakalaka. Hopefully you had a great day today. Monday birthday, man. Hopefully he did something fun or are doing something fun. Big fat steak tonight, 2 scoops of ice cream, whatever. Today is my birthday, hoping for a baby G. You never know, man. There's still some time left on the clock today. Things have been pretty quiet over here, but there's still time left on the clock, so we'll see. Thank you, Boom Shakalaka. Hey, Rick D. This illegal alien who was convicted of killing a child is suing Trump for $75 million for humiliating him during the campaign. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. Why do we even give them access to our courts? It's like such a joke. Such a joke. I'll have to look up this lawsuit. Yeah, he's humiliated. Oh, really? He got decades in prison for killing Ruby Garcia, sues Trump for humiliating him for highlighting the crime. He's seeking a public apology, citizenship, and $75 million in damages. The gall, man. You break into the nation. Oh, what's going on? Why didn't that screen change? That's not it. There you go. Right here. He's seeking a public apology, citizenship, and $75 million in damages. The gall, man. The gall. Thank you for that heads up on that one, Rick D. I might have to look that lawsuit up. What a joke. Hey, it's PB&J Pritzker. Yeah, this guy. Will Hollywood reboot Cheers with PB&J Pritzker as Norm? We call him PB&J because he looks like he's got PB coming out of his jowls. Hey, Slimmer Stubby, Roberts in charge and picking the judges has already condemned this court. There's no way, especially with it open to the public, that it will function as intended because of him. You might be right about that, Slimmer Stubby. I'll say the rules are pretty low as far as what we read today. We're going to learn a lot more about it, see if there's more, more rules underpinning that. But by and large, it's like preponderance of the evidence, like definitions are pretty broad, a lot of discretion for the AG. Like Congress gave them a lot of leeway, which is great. So just following the law, the law says we can do it. And Jeb Boasberg said, hey, go over there. Okay, we're over there. Nice. Good to see you, Slimmer Stubby. We're going to stay positive, glass half full on this one. The original Kelly Sue, what's up? May I nominate Ana Navarro? Big terrorist in terms of size and mass. 17 months as a member, the original Kelly Sue. Yeah, I don't know what the rules are. Is she an alien? Yeah, maybe. Might be time for her to go. We'll have to find out what the rules are. You can submit an application, submit it under seal. Will Crump, does lack of state request for Fed help totally preclude Insurrection Act invocation? It's time. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think there's that. We read that statute a long time ago. I think there's a couple of different. It's time for Trump to end this anti-ICE terrorism decisively. Yeah, so we read that a while ago. Like, could Trump invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy the feds into the states, like the sanctuary states? Our argument was that he could, that the governor didn't need to request it. We actually litigated that for a while, didn't we? And then they solved it. Like he was going to do that, then Newsom sued, and there was some litigation over that. I forget exactly how that went down. But yeah, I mean, I think the governor said it needs to go through the governor, and he said, no, it doesn't. That's the whole point, that you don't need to request it in order for me to come in there and put down an insurrection. And so we read the law, and I think our original interpretation is that, no, he can do that. But I don't think he wanted to do that because of the political consequences of it. But, at some point, maybe there's nothing left to lose. Good to see you on that one, Will Crump. We'd have to revisit that case, though. King of Biltong in the house. What's up, Biltong? Did you guys know that Biltong makes exceptional travel food? Clean, protein-packed, grass-fed, air-dried beef with great flavor. You can check it out at BiltongUSA.com and use code Robert, and you'll save 10% off on your delicious meats. Rick D. On this day in history, Eagle Apollo 11 LEM landed and became the first humans on the moon. Beep. Beep. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Beep. Beep. Hey, G-Gum, what's up? It's going to be a girl. Hey, the farmers are in the house. Well, that's going to make Joey very happy. Your boy's very happy either way, boy or girl, but G-Gum's voting for a girl. And we had a bunch of you guys joined us on Saturday. It was great to have you. Thank you. It was a ton of fun. And I didn't do a count, but you know, it might have been 50-50 on the boy versus girl predictions. We'll have to look at the stats. Thank you for that one, Jigam. Jigam was there. Great to see you, Jigam. And my mom said hello, too. She said, that's Jigam. So great to see her. She's so beautiful. Elk Plow, what this means is simple. Goldwater didn't go far enough. Make treason a word again. Yeah, we have that word for a reason, because there are traitorous activities that happen inside the government. And so maybe it would be appropriate to, actually hold people to that standard. Oh, you're voting boy. McGarvey is voting girl. Oh, I thought that came from you. It's going to be a girl. Okay, so Jigam says boy. McGarvey says girl. All right, thank you for the clarity on that, Jigam. Elk Plow. Yeah, I mean, there is a real thing called, treason and traitorism. And I'm not accusing anybody of that at this moment, but it is a concept in our self-governance, so we should consider it. Hey, Mr. Man, thank you, Mr. Man. Says, great program today. Thank you for the nice dono, Mr. Man. We appreciate that. I thought there were some good stories. Pretty quiet day. Congress is leaving like next week. They're gone. Supreme Court's leaving. Murkowski stabbed us all in the back. And so I thought it would be kind of a quiet day, but we had some good stuff going on. Hey, and Jim tells you, man, amazing. So Jim is going to be streaming. And so we'll send you on over there if you're watching on YouTube, so you can go check out that show and enjoy some more amazing analysis. Jigam, thank you for the update on the Rubos. Tommy Olahowski, what's up, Tommy? All right, Rob, where's the kid at? Need to know if you're all set with tarps and ponchos, my man. Yeah, tarps, ponchos, plungers, umbrellas, face shield. Getting excited for y'all. Cheers, mate. Thank you, man. Tommy Olahowski. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. We got everything we need. Your boy's going to be like Breaking Bad cooking meth, Just kidding. I don't really care. Whatever. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be great when it comes. It's not happening yet, but maybe it's, maybe I'll be done and she'll be like, we're ready. Baby's coming. Like, oh, okay. But when it starts to go down, I intend to let you know, or at least post something about it, but we'll see. Not going to live stream it. Probably won't live stream it. But thank you for that, Tommy. We're excited about it. We have everything. We had a home visit. So we had we're doing a home birth, as we've mentioned. So we had everybody come and, they do a home check. They make sure you've got everything. Go down the checklist. Got this, got how many plungers? Okay. How many tarps? Okay. 3 tarps. Great. How many ponchos? Perfect. Okay. All the things. So we're good. We're good to go. Yeah, it's good to go. Car jack, What are those things they used to get you out of the vehicles? Jaws of life. Don't think we need those, but you never know. Hey, Dan Sundin, we would never rig an election, says President Xi, after winning 100% of the vote. No, the Chinese would never do that. They would never interfere with our elections. Of course not. Yeah, of course not. Here's a gif of our new baby coming in right there. Boy or a girl? There's your boy walking around DC with my beautiful wife, our new baby. And perhaps that's what our little child will look like. Look at that hairdo, man. Looking good, man. Looking good, little baby boy. Jaws of life. And the girl has a widow's peak too. Man, I hope that doesn't happen, but amazing. Thank you for that, Jigam. Super fun. All right, so good stuff, my friends. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have a great week together. Thank you for subscribing on your way out. If you haven't done that, thank you for liking the video. Thank you for sharing the show with a friend or family member so that they know what the heck else is going on out there, and so they can come and join us tomorrow when we go live, because it's better when we do it together, and it's a lot of fun to have new friends in the house. Let's see if we got any comments on X, and then we'll call it a day. Communist subversion, 100% right. This came over from B. Torn. Shout out to Iconic Podcast right over there. A plan for total worldwide control. True. Happening. And Neuro D, thank you, Neuro D. Neuro D says, join Watching the Watchers at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, our members only community. That's where we'll be live tomorrow morning, or on YouTube. If you want to join us there, we'll see you back here in the morning. But we'll pause here for the night. It's been a lovely stream. Thanks for the great comments. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the love, the friendship, the frivolity, all the things. Deborah, hey, sorry couldn't make it to the baby shower. Oh, no problem at all. There will be a lot more baby activities, I'm sure. says oh, well, that's not, yeah. So my cousin passed and had her funeral on Saturday. I'm sure it was fun. I'm thinking it's a girl. I'm sorry about your cousin, Deborah. You're a good cousin. Got to go and support your family. So glad you did that. Sorry for the somberness of the event, but we missed you. We'll have many more baby type activities to come, no doubt about it. Thank you, Deborah, for saying what's up. Also, 34 months as a member. Thank you, Deborah. That's a long time. That's multiple babies. Says, wow, time is flying by and having fun. Amazing. We have a great members only community. We have a lot of fun together. And the streams are a little bit, not as kind of intense. We get to hang out, talk a little bit more. So it's a good time. Thank you, Deborah, for being here. We've seen a lot together. We've grown a lot. And hopefully much more to come. So thank you for that. All right, so friends, we'll pause here on the day. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll get into it again. And before we close it out, big thanks to our amazing mods and meme smiths. What's up, Muffin Rando in the house? We got John. We got Donut Mind Me. Shout out to K Bean. We got Carrie B's back. We got Neuro D. We got Janik. We got Dog Digger over on the Rumbles. We got Geegum Geegum, Elliot, Just Rhonda, all modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. Goober Griff. What's up, Goober Griff? 18 months as a member. That's 2 babies. That calculation I can do. I have been subscribed to this channel for 2 babies long. That's what I'm saying, man. It's a long time. It's a long time. It goes fast. But hopefully you're enjoying it as much as I am, Goober Griff. I really enjoy hanging out with you guys and going through all this news. So thanks again for squeezing that in, Goober Griff. Thank you, friends, for being here. I hope the rest of your evening is outstanding and beautiful. Hopefully you have a very peaceful and restful sleep tonight, and you come back tomorrow roaring and ready to go, because we'll be back here and we'll have some fun stuff to get to. But until we're back here, my friends, I hope your rest is well, and you come back tomorrow, because in order to do that appropriately and everything appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here, so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful evening, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
For watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted